Hello everyone, and welcome back to a very long overdue video, which is the countries API. And because I know some of you are only interested in the filter component and the filter by regions, then I'm going to place a timestamp on the video where you can just skip ahead to that part of the video. But what I want to mention is, since the last time that I recorded this video, then the API has changed in that now you need an access key in order to be able to send GET request to the API. So what I mean is, if you try to head over into restcountries.eu, then you will be redirected into countrylayer.com. So this is the new API, and the JSON request that you get back is almost the same as you can see right in this demo right here. But if you scroll to the bottom, just a bit to the bottom where we have an example of a GET request in C#, then you see that the API is no longer coming from REST countries, it's coming from country layer, and then you need an access key in order to make a GET request. And if you let's look at JavaScript. So this is an example of an AJAX call where you can return data from the API. So once again, we're going to build out this application in React, and in order to get this access key, then you need to create an account. So I have already done that, so I'm just going to click on login, and it should automatically log me in. And then once you log in after filling in the form, then you'll find that you're granted access to an API key. Okay, so this is my API key right here, and this is very important, so just keep this open for a little while longer. And then in my terminal, I have a new React application running, and I've called it country layer -v2. So in order to do that, then you need to navigate to wherever folder that you want, and then you need to run the command npx create react app, and then this is the name of your application. You can call it whatever you want. I just decided to call it country layer -v2 because I was testing this out yesterday, and just to make sure that everything is working correctly. And yeah, so this is version 2. I'm going to leave this link in the description. Probably I'm going to commit this to GitHub, but in my GitHub I already have the project that I was doing yesterday. Okay, so the repository is called country layer API demo. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is, once I finish coding this out in this video, then I'm going to commit it into this repository so that you can have access to it. So once again, I'm going to leave this link in the description, and everything should be working correctly. Now, if you're coming from the REST countries API challenge, okay, I linked it in this repository, so update to this repository. So what I mean is, if you're coming from this challenge, okay, then the GET request that we have in this repository is no longer going to work. I tried to test it out, and even in the deployed app that I have, it no longer works. Okay, so we're going to fix that in this video. Now, in my terminal, what I want to do is just, let me remove this, and then I'm going to say cd into country layer -v2, and then I want to install a couple of dependencies before you get started. So I'm going to say npm install. We need to install React icons, and then we need to install React router DOM for our internal routing, and then we are going to use Tailwind CSS for this, and we're going to install it as well. So let this run, and then let's head over into Tailwind CSS installation, and we want to install using create react app. So just copy this and then let this finish running, and then once it finishes running, we're just going to go step by step. Okay, so let me open Visual Studio Code into this folder, so code dot. Okay, open VS Code, and then inside Visual Studio Code, I'm going to open up my terminal using Control and J. Okay, and then I'm going to run the command that I copied from Tailwind CSS, and then let this run. And then once this finishes running, we are going to head over into an installation, and then we're going to install Crackle. So inside here, paste it once again, and then as that installs, then I want to copy these 3 because we're going to change our stat scripts inside our package.json. So let this finish installing first. There we go. And then in our package.json, then we want to change our stat scripts. So right here, just paste this in like so, and then we're going to create a Crackle config.js file inside the root of our application. So right inside here, we're going to create crackle.config.js, and then we're just going to paste this in. Okay, so we're going to use Tailwind CSS and auto prefixer, and then we need to create our Tailwind init file, our Tailwind config file. So using this command, so paste this in and let it run. And so what that command does is that it creates a Tailwind config file in the root of our application right here. So this is our Tailwind config file, and we just need to change one line here, which is this purge. So just copy this and then paste this inside here. And what this does is that it makes sure that it removes all the styles that we don't use, so that it minifies our CSS file, which just improves our loading speed. So let's save this. And actually, before we save that, then we need to change this dark mode into class, okay, because we're going to be using the Tailwind dark mode, which comes pre-shipped with the Tailwind these days, to add dark mode to our website. So let's save this like so. And then what media does actually is that it's going to use the system theme. So if you have set your operating system to use dark mode by default, then media is going to check for that, and then it's going to load you the dark mode version. And then if you have set it to light mode, it's going to do the vice versa. And then we just need to include these 3 lines inside our index.css. So inside our source folder, index.css, at the top, we're just going to include this like so. And then I think we can remove this, and that should be fine. So let's save this, and let's see, we have done this. This is included by default. So yeah, that should be fine. And then once we do that, then I'm going to go back into our terminal, and then now I'm going to run my server using npm start, which should open this up on localhost 3000. And actually, I've made another mistake, so let me shut this down first of all, and then let's go inside our workspace, and then let's close this. And then what I want to do is, in my workspace, I want to create a .env file, okay, .env, because we are going to be working with API keys, and it's not a good idea to commit your API keys to GitHub. And then once we create this .env file, I want to go inside .gitignore, and right above this, I want to ignore the .env file as well, so that we don't commit it to GitHub and expose our API keys. Now inside the .env, what I want to do is I want to create a variable called react app access key, and this is going to be equal to my access key, which is coming from this. So just copy this, copy and paste it inside here, okay. And then once we do this, then I think this is all we need for our access key in React. And then now I can run my server. So let's say npm start, okay. So the reason why I shut it down is because if you run your server and then create your .env file after, then it's not going to recognize your .env file, and you're going to get an error from Node.js, okay. So it's always important that even if you're running a server and then you create your .env file, then you shut it down, and then actually not shut it down, but you just restart it, so that Node.js can recognize your .env file. And how we're going to be accessing this is by using process.env this variable name, okay. And we're going to do that, don't worry about it. And this should be opening up. Let's just place it to the side so that we can do this once, and we're going to have this. Now what I want to do is, in my source folder, then I want to create a new folder called components, and inside components I want to create a new file called countries.js, and another file called country.js, so singular, and then another file called header.js, and then another file called toggle.js. And I think these names are descriptive enough. So the countries is where we're going to fetch all our countries, then the singular country is where we're going to display our singular country, and then the header is going to be our header, and the toggle is going to be our dark mode toggle, so dark mode and light mode. And then once we do this, then let's head over into app.js, and then let's perform a bit of cleanup inside here, and then let's remove the header, and then let's remove this div. And inside this div, then actually let me just do it systematically. So I'm going to say import browser router, so browser router as router, so this is coming from React router DOM, and then we want to import route and then switch like so. These are coming from React router DOM, and then this, we're going to wrap our entire application inside the router, okay. So this is going to be our routing for our application. And then what we want to do is render our switch statement first. So switch, I can just type it correctly, so switch, okay. And then above the switch, I want to render my header, okay, because I want the header to render on every single page. If I were to render this inside here, then it wouldn't work, and actually probably it would throw me a kind of bug which is very hard to identify. So inside the switch, we're going to create our route component, and route is basically what kind of path that you want to navigate to, right? So this will take in a prop called path, and this is going to be equal to /. Okay, and I'm going to close it out, and I'm going to be rendering the countries component by default. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and this is going to throw me an error, but let me just import this from components. So import countries from /components/countries, and before it throws me an error, then let's go into countries.js, and then let's say _rfc. Come on, there we go, and then let's return an h1 that says countries, like so, and we should see this on the screen. Okay, and then let's just copy this, oops, paste it inside here, change this to country, and then change this to single country, and then let's say _rfc. Let's have an h1 that says header, and then let's say _rfc. Let's have a button that says toggle. Now I'm doing _rfc. This is coming from an extension called ES7 React Redux GraphQL and React Native Snippets. So you can go ahead and install this extension, and then you'll be able to do _rfc, and it's going to generate this for you just to reduce all the typing and stuff. Let's close that, and then we can save this, and let's check this out. Let's go into app.js, and then now let's render our header. So let's render our header from components header, and we should see header right there. Okay, now let's create our second route, which is going to be going into our single country. So route, the path for this is going to be / wait a minute, it's going to be / name. Okay, and we're going to be rendering this. We're going to render a children prop, and then we're going to render our country component. Okay, now you can do this. Let me just explain something. You can render this component as children, or you can render it, you can remove it just from here, and then you can remove this children prop, and you can render it inside here. Both of them will still work. Okay, both will still work. I just prefer doing it like this. Okay, now this is going to be a bug. Okay, I'm doing this on purpose so that I can show you what bug it is and how you can fix it. And actually it's just a bug in the new API, but probably they're going to fix it, and it might not work as I expected, but you should know at the back of your head that this is technically a bug, and I'm going to show you how you can fix it. At least it was a bug when I discovered it. Now we have this imported right here. We have the header. Okay, so everything should be working correctly. Now probably I want to add an error page, so let's create a route. The path for this is going to be a wildcard, so asterisk, and then we're going to say error. Okay, so let's create our error page. Let's create a component called error.js, and then inside here let's say _rfc, and then let's return an h1 that says error page. Okay, now I want to show you something and how we are going to fix it. Okay, so let me go on a bigger screen, and then I've saved this. Let me save this. Okay, now error is not defined. Sorry, we need to import this. There we go, components error, and we should see that now if I try to navigate into a page that doesn't exist, then we should see error page. Okay, but notice how this page doesn't exist, the link for this doesn't exist, but we don't see error page. Now the reason for that is because technically this / also matches with this, and it also matches with this. So in order to fix that, then we need to add another prop here called exact. So what exact does is that it will make sure that only when we are on the / will this render. Okay, and remember that the header is going to render on every page because it is outside of the switch. And then what the switch does once again is that it's going to render the first path that matches. So if we're on the / it's only going to render the /. If we are on the / name, it's only going to render this component, and then if we're on any other route, then it's going to render the error component. So let's save that, and let's see if we have fixed it. And it says single country. Okay, single country once again because this is technically correct. Okay, and we're going to fix that. We're going to probably see the error page once we deal with our single country component. So let's save this. Let's go back into a smaller screen. There we go, and then let's go into our countries. So countries, and then let's begin dealing with our API call. Okay, So let's import the two hooks that we're going to need. So import use state and use effect from React. Okay, and then below this, let's say const countries and set countries is equal to use state. By default is going to be an empty array because we're going to populate it. And then we're going to say const is loading and set is loading. So our loading state by default is going to be true. Okay, and then now let's create our function to fetch our country's data. So let's say const fetch countries equals to async function, and then we're going to say const res equals to await fetch, and then we're going to pass in our URL to fetch our data, and I actually don't have that URL, so let me grab it. Let's go into the country layer. Okay, let's go into the documentation, which is right here. So check documentation. Okay, so this is our default endpoint. So let me just copy this. Actually, this is not the one. This is our the endpoint to access all the countries. So /all. Okay, so you can copy that link and then place it inside some backticks. Okay, backticks because we want to append our access key at the end of this. So what you can do is at the end of this, you can say question mark and then say access underscore key. I think that's how they write it. Yes, access underscore key, and this is going to be equal to $ brackets, and then we're going to say process.env.react underscore app underscore access underscore key, which is what we created in our .env file. Okay, and then we're going to say const data equals to await res.json, and then we're going to say set countries into the data that we get back, and we can console log the data. But I should mention that this is going to give us an error, and I'm going to explain what that error is. So let's call this function inside a use effect. Okay, so use effect, we only want it to run once. That's why we add an empty dependency array, and then the function is called fetch countries. So let's save this, and then let's go inside our application. Let's say F12 to open up our console, and you're going to see this error that says failed to load resource. Okay, that's because we are trying to access look at this error. It says HTTPS access restricted, right? So it says access restricted, your current all that. Now the reason for that is because we're using the free tier of this API, then we can't perform HTTPS requests. Okay, so all we need to do is just change this into HTTP and it should work. Now look at that, we should get an array of objects of 250 items, and that is working correctly. Now remember that we are only limited to 100 requests per day, so I really want to try and manage that as best I can. So we are on the first request, so let's go back into this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to write out everything that we're going to need before we perform another API call, just to limit it as much as we can, not limit but manage. Okay, so let's return a fragment here. So because we can only return one item, so we want to return our fragment. You can return a div or a section or anything else, but I like returning a fragment. It sounds much cooler. Okay, so inside here, let's say let's return a section, and then inside this section we're going to map over our countries data. So countries.map. Okay, and then for every country, actually I just want to destruct it right away. So inside here, actually let me see what we get back, because the API doesn't have quite a few items that we did. So let me just see what we get back inside our array. We have name, we have, yeah, we don't have quite a few things. We don't have like the flag of the country, we don't have the borders and the languages and the currencies and all that, but we can work with this, don't worry about it. So what we need to do is we need to return the name. We want to destructure the name, the capital, and the region. Those are the three things that we are going to need. So the name, capital, and region. Okay, and then let's set up our implicit return, and we want to return an article with a key of name, because no country has two names, right? As in, no two countries have the same name, that's what I mean. And then we're going to return an h2 that says name. Below this, we're going to have a ul with two list items. The first one is going to say capital, the second one is going to say region, let's add a flag here that says region, and then let's have capital on top of this. So this is going to say capital region, and then what I want to do is, let me see if I can style this out in my head. So class name, I want this to have a BG white, a rounded border with a slight box shadow, okay, and then let's have padding all around of 5, and then inside this h2 let's give this a class name of font bold, let's say text gray dash 900, okay, let's say text dash 2xl, let's say margin bottom of 3, okay, and this should be fine, this should be fine. And then let's go inside this section, let's give this a class name of grid and grid columns 1 with a gap of 5, let's say padding all round of 5, okay, so padding just to push it inwards a bit. And then let's say that for medium screens, then I want the grid columns to be 2, for large screens I want the grid columns to be 3, for XL screens I want the grid columns to be 4, and for 2XL screens I want the grid columns to be 5. And then for 2XL screens we're going to add the class of container, which comes from Tailwind. And then once again for 2XL screens I want the MX to be auto, so that everything goes back to the center. Okay, so I think we can save this. Okay, yeah, let's save this, and then let's go inside our index.css, and then let's give this body a background color. So let's just say at apply BG gray dash 100, which is a very slight background color. And then I want to add a dark kind of flag here, a dark flag which comes from Tailwind, and I'm going to say that when we have dark mode on, then I want BG gray to be 900. Okay, so let's save this, and if you're wondering where this is coming from, remember that we added dark mode to class inside here. That's why you can add dark mode classes directly inside our CSS file. So let's save this, and then let's see what we have. And this is what we have. Look at this. So we have Afghanistan, Aland Islands, and all those working correctly. So 250 items. Remember, we can't get the flag yet because the API, I think they're still updating it, that's why. But you know, everything is working as it should, as we expect. Now what I want to do is I want to make these cards into clickable links, right? So I want to grab the entirety of this article, cut it out, and then I want to return a link, and this is basically an href. Okay, so just return a link and paste it inside here, and then let's grab this key from here because the article is no longer the main item. So key is equal to name, and then this is going to take in a toprop, which basically means where do you want it to go to, right? And this toprop is going to be dynamic because we want it to change for every country. So I'm going to place it inside curly brackets, and then I'm going to place backticks, so template literals, and then I'm going to say / and then $name, right? So this is coming from, if you go into app.js, we have / and then the name. So the name is technically our slug, which changes with every country that we click on. Okay, so that's why you have / and then the name. Now something that I should mention is that if you had / countries and then / name, then inside your countries you'd have to have / countries / and then your variable. Okay, now this is very important to note because sometimes it's if you don't know why something's not working, you know, it's things like this that are quite annoying. So let's remove this, save this, and then let's save this, and everything should work correctly. Let's see, link is not defined. We should import this from React Router DOM. So right there, so import link from React Router DOM, and we should see it does that sometimes, so you can just reload it. It does that sometimes, and we should see this. Now notice how the cards are now clickable because the cursor changes to a clickable item. Now if I click this, okay, look at this. Now the slug changes into the country that I click on, and then we have the single country component. If I try to click on another one, we can just say Poland. Look at this, it changes to / Poland, so that is working correctly, right? Now what we need to do is we need to have actually, let me add our loading set. I've just realized it. So look, in order to add our loading set, let's just grab the entirety of this section, cut it out, and then let's say if is loading is true, then want to return an h1 that says loading ... And then if it is false, so full colon, and then we just want to paste this in, and it should be working correctly. So let's tell out this h1, give this a class name of flex items dash center and justify dash center and h screen, and let's say text dash for XL, let's say uppercase, let's say tracking wide to increase the letter spacing or widest, let's say text gray dash 900, and then on dark mode we want to say text white. Okay, so when dark mode is on, then we want to change this text to white. And then let's say that for large screens, then the text should be 7XL, make it big for nothing. Okay, so let's say when we save this, then we're going to have our loading state here. Okay, and I want this to be font bold, so font dash bold. Okay, and then now because we have our loading state, we want that when we fetch our data, then we want to change our loading state to false because it's true by default. So once we fetch our data right here, we want to say set is loading back to false. So you're going to have loading, and then once it loads, then we have this. Fantastic. Next, let's deal with our header just to get it out of the way. So let's go into header, and then let me place this full screen. And what I want to do is inside here, okay, let me move this. So inside here, we're going to turn a fragment and then our header element, and then inside header, we're going to have a div with an h2 that says where in the world. Actually, no, let's say h1 because it's the only h1 on the page, so where in the world. And then below this, we're going to have another div that says our toggle component, which we import from toggle right inside here. And then let's style this header, so give this a class name of flex item center and justify between, and then let's make this header a fixed header, and then let's give it a width of full and a background of white and a slight box shadow. And then let's say padding y of 2 and padding x of 5. And yeah, let's see what we have on the screen. We should have this. So it's going to scroll once we scroll, when we scroll, right? It's going to scroll with us. And then let's type this h1. So give this h1 a class name of let's see font bold. Let's say text gray dash 900, and on dark mode we want to say text white, and then let's say text dash 4XL. That should be fine. We have this. Let's increase the padding on the y, it's too small. Let's just say padding all around of 5. I think that would be much better. Okay, and remember that every time that you save your work inside here, technically I think it triggers another API request. So let's just confirm that we are not exceeding our limit too much, because we still have quite a few ways to go. So 10 requests, that's fine. And notice how now our header is technically covering the content, right? So let's just fix that by going into countries here, and then let's add a margin top of 10. Move it downwards. Oops, that's wrong. Let's say padding top of 10 so that it doesn't affect our header. Let's say padding top of 28. 28 exists, right? Yeah, there we go. So we are going to have this. So next let's deal with our toggle. Okay, so let's go into toggle.js, and then inside here we're going to import React icons. So let's say import fa moon and fa sun for our dark mode. These are coming from React icons /font awesome library. And then let's return a fragment, and then we're going to have a button, and actually we need a loading state. So let's say import use state from React, and then let's say const dark mode and set dark mode. This is equal to use state, and by default it's going to be false. Yeah, it's going to be a falsy value. And then what we need to do now is we want to check for this state. So if it is false, we want to render our moon, and if it is true, we want to render our sun. Okay, so what we can do inside here is we can render a button, and we can check our place in our conditionals, our tertiary operator, and we can say when dark mode is true, then we want to render fa moon. Let's see, fa moon. And then let's say if it is false, then we want to render fa sun. Okay, so let me save this. Let's see what we have. We should have, if you can reload, there we go. Okay, it should be the opposite. So this should be fa sun, and this should be fa moon. There we go. So when we click this, it's going to change into the sun because we want it to change to light mode, and so on and so forth. Now what we can do in order to change this, in order to enable this toggle, what we can do is we can add an on click on this button such that when you click on it, then we want to call a function called change theme. Okay, so let's create this function, and I'm going to say const change theme equals to an arrow function because I like arrow functions, and we're going to say document dot document dot body dot class list dot toggle, and we want to toggle the class of dark, which we have been adding. We have been adding the class of dark, and I can't seem to find it, but that's okay. We're going to find it later. And then once this toggles the class of dark, then we want to say set dark mode into the opposite of dark mode. Okay, and what this means basically is that when we click on this and add the class of dark mode, we want to change this to true so that this triggers, so that this is going to trigger and it's going to change the icon. And then when you click on it again, because we are toggling, it's going to remove the class of dark mode, and then it's going to set this back to false, and then we're going to render our moon. Okay, so let's save this and let's see if this is going to work. So let's click this, and there we go. So we know we are on dark mode because this changes to white. Okay, because remember we changed it to white, and then we can add it again, and so on and so forth. So let's change the background color of the header when we are on dark mode. Okay, so on header we want to say dark, we want to say on dark mode we want to say bg gray -900. Okay, so let's add this. Let's see, look at that. So look at that, fantastic. And then of course we need to change the icon colors for this because it's kind of hard to see, right? So let's go into toggle, let's go into fa sun, let's give this a class name of text yellow -500, and then let's give this moon a class name of text gray -900. Okay, so that we're going to have that. Look at that, that is much better, right? Much better. And then let's go inside our articles, inside our countries articles, which is right here. And then we're going to say on dark mode we want to say dark mode, we want bg gray -800, just a bit lighter than the 900 dark mode that we have. And then for the h2 we want to say on dark mode we want to say text white. And actually I'm going to copy this because we're going to do the very same thing right inside here, here, and here. Oops, wrong cursor. So class name we're going to say dark mode text white, and then by default we're just going to say text gray -900. Okay, so look at that. Now we're on dark mode. Now we have this, and then we can toggle it, and we have this. Interesting, right? Now for those of you who watched my first video, I don't quite remember what I did such that we needed to click twice on this so that to toggle our dark mode, but you know, we have fixed it in this video, so that is much better. Now the reason why the body isn't toggling, I think, is because we added this class in our CSS, and I ran into this problem as well, and I don't know why that happens, but let's try and fix it by going into app.js, and then let's wrap this entire thing. Okay, let me see. Yeah, let's wrap this entire thing inside the main, like so. And then let's give this main a class name of bg gray -100, and then on dark mode we want to say bg gray -900, which means we can remove this as well. So let's save that, and then let's save this, and let's see what health, if this will work. I don't know whether that will work. bg gray 900, does it work? It still doesn't work. Let's see. Loading, and then okay, there we go. So just needed to reload a bit. Now instead of this being 900, because we want it to be just a bit visible, let's make it 800, just like these cards. So let's go inside header, let's change this to 800. Okay, and then let's go inside our countries once again, and then let's say let's add a hover effect for this. So when hover, we want bg gray dash, wait a minute, when we hover and when we are on dark mode, we want hover, we want bg gray dash 700. Okay, and then when we hover and we're in light mode, we just want to say bg let's say bg white. Okay, and then let's just say transition dash all with a duration of 300. Now this might be a bit confusing if you're not used to Tailwind. What this means is that when we hover over the card and we are on dark mode, then this is going to trigger. Okay, and I've written this wrongly. Yes, I've written this wrongly. It should be dark and then hover. Dark and then hover. Yeah, there we go, because this color wasn't showing. Okay, so let's save this and then let's see. So let's see, there we go, look at that, looking amazing. And when we go on light mode, then actually, wait a minute, this is already white. Sorry, this is already white. So when we hover over this, let's say bg gray -100, so that we don't have that. Okay, there we go, that is much better. Now let's deal with our single country component, where we're going to have this. And then in our countries, what we need to do first of all, okay, so we need to perform a few things in our country component. And the first thing that we're going to do is import our hooks that we're going to need. So import use state and use effect. These are coming from React. And then we need to import link as well, because we're going to link back into our home page. And then we need to import another hook called use params, which comes from React router DOM. So React router DOM. And then let's set up our state values. So const, let's say country, and set country. This is equal to use state. By default, it's going to be an empty array. And then we're going to say const is loading for loading animation, and set is loading. This is going to be equal to use state, and by default it's going to be true. Okay, and then finally we need to get the name. Okay, we need to destructure the name from use params, like so. And this name, remember, this name is coming from this. Okay, so let me explain what use params does. So use params is going to look at our link that we have inside here, and then it's going to make sure that we only fetch the data for the country that is displayed at the top. Okay, so that's why we destructure the name, because the name is coming from this as well. And then let's set up our use effect. So use effect. Okay, and then the dependency here is going to be the name. Okay, so what that basically means is that every time that the name changes, meaning every time that this link changes, then we want our effect function, so our fetch function for the country, to run once again. And this is the function is going to be called fetch country data, like so. So let's create it. Let's go above this. I like creating the functions above the use effect just because it's a bit systematic to me, but you can create it below the use effect as well. So let's say const fetch country data, like so. This is going to be an asynchronous function. And I've just remembered that this is going to give us a warning in the console. Okay, and I'm going to show you what that warning is. So I'm going to say const res equals to await. And what we need to do is, because we are searching, we are getting the countries by the name, then we need to go inside our documentation once again, and we just need to find out where the name is. So endpoint country search by name. Okay, so this is the link right here. So copy this, and then let's say await fetch, and once again inside backticks we're going to paste this in. And now this is our variable, so we need to have a $sign. Okay, so we are accessing the name from here, remember. Okay, so /name, and then we need to append our access key. So $access underscore key, this is equal to $, and we're going to say process.env.react app access key. Okay, and remember, because we can't do HTTPS request, we need to remove the secure from this. And then we're going to say const data equals to await res.json, and then we're going to say set country into the data. Okay, now once we do that, then this should be good to run. Okay, so inside here, let's structure our return. Let's remove this, and we're going to return a section, and then inside this section we're going to return we're going to map over our country data. So country dot map, and then we're going to destructure right away. So I want to destructure the name of the country, and destructure the capital of the country, the region, and I think those are the three items that actually, you know what, I can get the top level domain as well. Top level domain. Okay, because the API isn't really all that complete. And then we're going to return an article with a key of name, like so. Okay, and then inside here let's return an h2 that says the name of the country. Below this, let's return, actually, you know what, inside here let's have a span, and then this span is going to say the capital of the country. We're going to style it a bit differently. And then below the h2, let's have a ul like so with 3 list items. The first one is going to say region, and it's going to have a region flag like so. And the second one is going to say top level domain, so top level domain, and we're going to say top level domain for our flag. And I've just realized we don't need this third one, so we can remove it. So let's style this out. Let's give this a class name of text-4xl, and then for large screens, let's say text-6xl. Let's say font bold, let's say text gray-900. Let's say for dark mode, we want the text to go back to white. Okay, and then these are going to be styled the same, so give this a class name of text gray-900. And then on dark mode, we want the text to be white, so text white. Okay, and then yeah, I think that should be fine. That should be fine. Okay, and probably we can add our loading state before we save this. So let me grab all of this, and we can say when is loading is true, we want to return an h1 that says loading ... And then if it is false, then we want to render this. And let me just grab the same styles that we had in our loading state here. So grab this, copy this, and then just paste it inside here. Paste that, and that should be fine. Okay, and then I've just remembered that probably let me save that just so it's a bit clearer. What we can do is above this, we can have a link that links back to /, and then we can just say ampersand. We can say ampersand left arrow, so LARR, and then our colon, our semicolon, sorry, and then we can say back, and then of course close this link out like so. That's why we imported the link. So you can save this, and then let's see what we have here. So we have loading, and actually loading is infinite because we did not set is loading to false. So set is loading to false once we fetch our data, and we should see this. So let's move this down. Okay, so let's move this down. Let's go inside the section, give this a class name of padding top of 32. Okay, and then let's say that for 2XL screens, let's have let's say for XL screens, let's have a class of max width -7XL, and then just to limit it. And then for XL screens, once again, let's say MX auto to push it to the center. And then let's say padding X of 5 to push it in once so that it's not all the way to the edge. And then we're going to have this. Let's say that for XL screens, then the padding has to be 0. Okay, so we're going to have this. Okay, so back is working correctly. So let's just tell this out a bit. Let's go inside this UL. Actually, no, let's just go inside the H to give this a class name of margin bottom of 10. Should be fine. Let's go inside these two classes. So want to give this a sorry, not a class name, but let's say text dash large, and then let's add a large flag to this. So on large screens, then it just increases the text by a bit, and then let's tell this out to be a bit smaller. So let's go inside this span, give this a class name of font dash light, and then by default it's 4XL. So let's reduce this to 2XL. And then let's say that for large screens, then the text is going to be 4XL, so that we're going to have this. Okay, looking fantastic. And by the way, the reason why we have this is because our main class has our main element, sorry, has a background of gray. So what we can do, and let me see if I can fix this. What we can do is we can set this into h-screen. Okay, and this is what we're going to have on the screen. Now, once again, remember, it's because we don't have quite a few items that we're returning, because the API isn't, I think they're still working on it. That's why we can't still get the flag as well. Okay, so let's tell out this back button. So let me go inside here, so link to here, give this a class name of bgblue-500. let's say padding y2, padding x4, let's say rounded, let's have a box shadow, let's say text white, let's say font bold, let's say tracking wide to increase the letter spacing, and we're going to have this. Okay, So we're going to have this. We can have animate pulse. So animate pulse just so it pulses a bit. There we go. And then this is the padding is a bit off, so let me say padding left 4, padding right 6, and then let's say padding top 2 and padding bottom 3, just so that the button can be a bit more uniform. And then let's go inside this once again. Let's say, actually, you know what, inside the h2, where's the h2? Here. So margin bottom 10, let's say margin top of 5. Put right from that. And you know what, actually this should be margin bottom 10 and then margin bottom 5, because the title is more related to this than the button. Okay, so that we're going to have this, and then we can try out our dark mode, and look at that, dark mode is working correctly as well. So light mode, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's head back inside here. So we have loading and we have this. Now let me see if I can find the error. Remember I mentioned that this was an error, not an error really, but a bug. So let me see if I can find it. Let's go into Land Islands and look at this. There it is. Notice how we are on Land Islands, right? But we are showing the Cayman Islands as well. Now the reason for that is because in our GET request, we are searching for the text that the kind of match, because this has islands and this has islands as well, so we are rendering both of them technically. So we don't want to do that. Okay, so this is what I just found out yesterday, and I thought it was quite interesting, and I don't know whether I can find another one, but you know, so on and so forth. And then it does this, by the way, it does that as well, so don't worry, you can just reload it. And then sorry, what am I doing? So let's fix that. Okay, so let's just fix this error, and we can fix that by changing this name into capital. So now instead of searching for the country by the name, we're going to be searching for the country by its capital city. So let's save this, and we're going to have an error because we need to change, where is it? We need to change this as well to say capital. Okay, so now the link is going into /capital, and this is not how you spell capital. So capital, and then we need to go inside. So let's save this, let's go inside country. And now instead of destructuring name, we're going to be structuring the capital, and this is now no longer going to say name, this is going to say capital, and then this as well. So this link is going to go into capital as well. And then let's see what else we need to change. So right inside here, our dependency array is going to say capital as well, and I think that should be fine. So let's save this, and let's see what we have. Country map is not a function, it does that sometimes. Sorry, okay, that's too much. Let's reload this, go back into localhost, and you should find this. So let's try and go into Land Islands, and look at that. Now we're only rendering the Land Islands as well, only on its own. I mean, we can go back, we can go into another country, and we have this. So that's looking amazing. And now what we need to do is actually work on our filter, but I realize I'm getting a bit tired, so I'm going to do a separate filter video which is going to come up, and probably you won't even realize it because I'm going to splice both videos together. Okay, so let's go ahead and start creating our filter component. So I'm going to go back into my workspace, and inside my source folder and inside components, I'm going to create a new file called filter.js, and then inside here, let's say _rfc, and we're going to have, come on, it's not working, it does that. So export default function filter, and then let's return, and we're going to return a fragment first of all, and then inside here we're going to have an input. Come on, input, close it out, and then input type for this is going to be search with a name of search with an ID of search with a placeholder text. So placeholder text is going to say search by country name, and then the value for this is going to be coming from somewhere. Okay, and the on change for this is going to be coming from somewhere as well. Now if you watched my other video where we did the filter for the Black History API that we created, then this is going to be a bit similar. So let's go ahead and actually not just so to avoid errors, let me remove this, and let's save this, and then let's go inside our countries component, and then right above this, so before our map, so above this, then let's render our filter component. Okay, so filter, come on, and then we need to import it. So let's import filter from./filter. Okay, so remember to spell it correctly, and then let's just space this out because it's a bit crowded. So we're going to have that. Okay, so let's see what you have on the screen, and we should have filter by country name. And of course this is wrong because now this behaves as a grid. So actually what I want to do is move this upwards. We're going to get an error because we can't return more than one item in a single return statement. So let me grab this entire section, so here till here, and then let's return a fragment. Okay, so in order for our filter component to actually work, then we need to add two more state values. And the state values that we need to add are for our filtered state and for our input state. Okay, so we're going to say const filtered and set filtered. This is use state, and by default it's going to be an empty array. And then we're going to say const search input and set search input. This is going to be use state, and by default it's going to be an empty string. So this filtered is going to be for our filtered countries, and for our input, this search input is going to be for whatever we type in. So let's create our function that is going to check for this search input. And you know what, I've just realized that I might have found something. So I mentioned this where I said that let me just go inside this country. I said something where that placing this outside of the use effect in this case is going to give us a warning. Okay, so this is the warning where it says use effect has a missing dependency. So in order to fix this, just grab this function and then just move it inside our use effect. Okay, and that should fix that error. So let's just reload this. There we go. So see that now it doesn't have that error anymore. I don't know, I really don't understand why it does that sometimes, because as you can tell that we have this outside of the use effect and there's no error. But when this now comes outside of the use effect, then there's the error. I think the reason for that is because of this dependency array, because it needs to access it from here. Okay, so as I was saying, let's go ahead and create our function to filter our search input. Okay, and remember that we are going to be passing in these items, so we're going to be passing in these items as props inside our filter component. Okay, so let's go ahead, let's go below this use effect, and then let's say create a function called search countries. Okay, and this is going to take in a search value parameter. Let's add an arrow function, and then let's say set search input into search value. Okay, so set whatever we type in into set whatever we type in into search input, which is now going to populate this from an empty string into whatever value that we type in. Okay, and then we're going to say if search input. So if search input, so if it exists, so if such input exists, so if we have typed anything inside our input, then we're going to say const filtered countries. So we're going to create a new variable where we're going to say countries dot filter, and then for every country, then we want to return something where we're going to say object dot values, and for the country we're going to say dot join. Okay, join with a string, and then we're going to say dot to lowercase like so, and then we're going to say dot includes such value dot to lowercase like so, and remember it's a method. And then below this, where is it, where does this end? Confusing. This begins here, it ends here. Okay, fantastic. So below this we're going to say set filtered into filtered countries, so filtered countries like so, and then we're going to have an else statement where we're going to say set filtered into countries. Okay, so what this does basically is that it's going to check for whatever we type in, and then it's going to filter over all the countries that we have in, and then it's only going to return the countries that match whatever we type in. And that's why we are going to set filter into filtered countries. So if this is true, and then if we don't have any input, so else, right? So if we don't have any input, then we're going to return all the countries that we have, which is our default state value. Okay, and then now what we need to do is just pass this in. Where is it? Pass in this function inside our filter. So we're going to say search, what was the name of this function? Search countries. So search countries prop is equal to search countries function, okay? Search countries prop. And then now what we need to do before we can actually filter all this is we're going to need to do a bit of refactoring, okay? Where we're going to grab this entire section. So this section ends here, okay? Just cut it out, okay? Cut it out, don't delete it. And we're going to say if, sorry, not if, what am I doing? We're going to say search input dot length is greater than 0. So if the search input does exist, so if this is true, then we want to render this, okay? So paste this in, and then if it is false, paste it in again, okay? Now the only difference to this is that here on the second part we are doing countries.map, but on the first part we want to do filtered.map, okay? So filtered is coming from this right here. So once we filter all the items in all the countries that we get from the search input, once we populate this array from an empty array into adding something into it, then we're going to filter the countries, and then we're going to display this. So we're going to display this up to here. And then if the search input doesn't exist, meaning if there's nothing in the search input, then we're going to do countries.map, okay? So this might be a bit confusing, but it's technically a tertiary statement. So let's save this. And then what we need to do is, let me see, so we have search countries. Let's go ahead into our filter component, and then let's destructure this prop. So search countries, and then we can do the value for this is going to be search input, which we need to get, by the way, sorry. So we need to get search input, and then let's, before I forget, let me pass it inside here as well. So search input, so search input prop is equal to search input state value, like so. So save this, and then the on change, we need to have an on change handler for this. So on change, we're going to place in our inline function and target the synthetic event of e, and we're going to say search value. Wait a minute, sorry, what was it? We need to say search countries into e dot target dot value, which just gives us what we type in. So let's save this, and hopefully, okay, this works. So let's go back into our React application, and where's our input? I can't see our input. And you know what, I think the reason for this is because the filter is only on the top. We don't have the filter on the bottom. That's the reason why. So let's grab this filter, copy this, and then let's paste it. We need to paste it where? It needs to be above this, but this gives us an error. So let's grab this section here up to the filter, and then let's return a fragment. Does that work? Oh, you know what, I think the filter is behind the header. I think the filter is behind the header. So let's do this. Let's grab this filter. Actually, I don't know whether we need two of them, by the way, but let's just grab this filter. Grab this one, place it inside a div, and then this div, give this div a class name of padding top 32. There we go. So this is our search input, and then that would mean that I can remove this because we no longer need it. Come on. Why does this want to start misbehaving? What is this insane? What is this insane? I think it's because of this. There we go. There we go. So let's remove this. We don't need that. Okay, there we go. Now let's style this search input just a bit before we can try to use it. So let's give this a class name of padding y of 2, padding x of 4, rounded, shadow, placeholder, let's say gray dash 900, and then on dark mode, let's say placeholder, let's say white. Oh, wait a minute, that won't work because I don't think, let me just leave it at that for a moment, because I'm trying to picture how this input is going to look on dark mode, and I really can't. So we're going to have this. Now let's let's do this. Let's have a margin left of 5 to push this inwards. Okay, and then what we need to do is let's just grab this, place it inside the div like so, and then this div, let's say class name is going to be 2xl. We're going to say container. I think that will push it inwards just a bit, even more. And then let's say 2xl, let's say mx auto. There we go. So that now it's on the same line as this. So that's looking fantastic. And then we can say for 2xl, then we can say margin left to be 0. Or not. I think I left the padding on the x-axis of 5 for this. Let's just leave this inside. And then for the width, let's make the width to be half. Let's say that for large screens the width should be half, and for small screens the width should be full, so that it goes all the way to the end. So let's try, and actually, you know what, let me add another attribute to this called autocomplete. Autocomplete, set this to off because sometimes it annoys me. Okay, so let's try and search this. So let's say Kenya. There we go. So our filter is working. So Kenya is working correctly. We can look for Zambia. There we go. So Zambia. We can look for Zimbabwe. There we go. We can look for Senegal. You know. So our search input is working correctly. And now let's add our filter by regions. So inside this div, let's add a let's say select. Okay, select with the name of select, with an ID of select, and then this is going to say option times 5. How many were there? I can't remember. There was Africa, there was Asia, there was Oceania, there was Americas. Is there? Oh, there's Europe. Okay, Europe. Okay, so this is going to say Europe, this is going to say Americas, this is going to say Oceania, this is going to say Asia, this is going to say Africa. Okay, so let's save this. Let's see what we have. It should be right here. There we go. So let's go inside this and let's make this into a flex box. of flex item center, justify between, and then by default on small screens it's going to be flex column, so this goes to the bottom. Okay, and this should be item center, it should be item start, so that it goes to the left. There we go. And then for this select, let's give this a class name of margin left of 5, so that it moves inwards to be on the same point as this. And then let's go here and let's say that for small screens, or let me say for medium screens, then we want to say flex row, and then for medium screens let's say items dash center, and then for medium screens let's say justify between. And then let's style this out. So we need to add a margin right now instead of left of 5. So let's go inside here, and then let's say for medium screens, then we want to say margin right 5. And then for medium screens, we want to remove the margin on the left because it's useless now. And then let's say, let's style it the same way as the input. So padding y of 2, padding x of 4, rounded, shadow. And let's see what we have. There we go. So we can now search by input, right? By region. So let's implement this. Okay, let's implement this search by region. Okay, so for the filter by regions, then we need to create another function. Okay, so another API call. So let's say import useState and use effect from React, and then inside here let's have our state value. So const how do you call this? Let's call this filtered countries. Actually, you know what, we already have that. I don't want to confuse items. So let's say, let's call this regions and set regions. This is equal to useState. By default, let's say just pass in an empty array. Okay, and then we're going to have a loading state as well. So let me just, I think I'll add it. So let's say set is loading, capital I. This is going to be useState. By default it's true. Okay, and then let's say we need to create our use effect. So use effect, and for use effect we're going to say this is going to be dependent on the region. Okay, and then let's create our const fetch country region, or let's say set fetch country by region. Okay, this is going to be an asynchronous function, async, like so, and an arrow function, const res equals to await fetch backticks. And then let's go into our documentation, and in our documentation we should be able to search for a country by the region right here. So this is the get request. So copy this, and then let's just paste it inside here, change this to HTTP, and then this is going to be dependent on the region, and I'm going to show you where we're going to get this. So region, and then let's append our access key. So question mark access underscore key equals to $process .env .react app access underscore key, like so. And then we're going to say const data equals to await res.json, like so. And then let's say set regions into data. Okay, and then below this let's call the fetch country by region function. Okay, and then we need to create the region. Now where does this region come from? So we're going to create an array of objects. So I'm going to say const region. Do I want to do this like this? I think let's just do this like this. So const region equals to an array of objects. And actually, you know what, I think I'm starting to think that we don't need this dependency array. I'm not sure a bit. Let me just remove this. Let's comment this out for a moment, and then let's call this function when we click on this select. Okay, so the value for this is going to be, let's say, filter by regions, and then on change. So on change we want to pass in our inline functions, target our event, and then we're going to say filter, where is it, what's the function? Give it a really long name for nothing. Okay, so call this function, and let's say e.target.value, and probably this won't work because this function is inside a use effect. So let's test this out. So let's go back into our application and see region is not defined, of course. So we actually need to do this then, and then we say fetch country by region is not defined. So the reason for that is because it's inside a use effect. So let's move it outwards, and one error should disappear. There we go. So region is not defined, so let's create an array of objects. So let's say name, this is going to be Africa, and you know what, let me just copy this down. So Africa, Asia, Oceania, Americas, Europe. Asia, Oceania, Americas, and Europe. There we go. So countries.region, will this work? I think so. .region, let's say .region.name. Let's say .name here, because we need to access the name that is inside this object. So let's save this, and hopefully this works. Hopefully this works. Region is not defined. It does that sometimes, you know. We can just reload it, and there we go. So we can test our input is still working. Okay, and let's filter by region. Fingers crossed. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. No. It doesn't work. So let's find out where the problem is. And you know what, I'm actually starting to think that okay, you know what, the problem is here. We need to access region. So let me say region.name. No, that won't work. So region and then region.name here. Is that correct? Let's save this. Let's try it again. Let's go back inside here, and it says cannot read properties of undefined of name. Come on. Okay. Oh. So let's move this. Okay, let's remove region. Let's see region, and our input says what? Let's change the value for this to be region.name. Okay, so let's save this. Let's try it out once again. Let's try it out. Just reload it to be on the safe side. and I think I'm cutting it very close with my with the number of requests that I have left. So Asia, why isn't this still working? Let me check whether oh, too many requests. Okay, that probably could be the issue. Let me just check my components, and then let's check our filter. And our filter says oh, so these are the Americas. These are countries by Americas, right? Let me just confirm. Americas, region Americas. Okay, so it seems as though, let me take a random one. It seems as though this is working. So let me just try and send out Europe, and let's see if we get back Europe. There we go. So we get back Europe here, and we also get back Europe, and Europe. Okay, so that means what? That means that probably it means that we're getting back, but we're not displaying it, right? That's what it means. So what does that mean, therefore? How are we going to display them? Okay, you know what? I think I've identified the problem. The problem is we shouldn't have this state value. We should not. Instead, we should be updating our country's state value, which is the one that holds all our countries. So let's go inside here, inside this input, and let's say set countries prop equals to set countries state value function. Okay, so let's save this, and then let's go inside here and let's say const sorry, not inside here, but let's destruct it. So set countries. Okay, and then here where we were saying set regions, let's say set countries. This should be the correct one. Okay, and I was debugging a bit where I added this to see whether I was getting any items, and it does work. So let's save this, and hopefully this works. So let's reload this. Let's see. Come on. Countries.map is not a function. Oh, I think it's because it was telling me that I'm making too many requests at a go. Wait, what? Have I exceeded my subscription? I don't think I have. 71. I still have some of them left. In countries component, considering an error boundary, countries.map is not a function. Countries 78. Where is this? It says in our second return. In our second return. This is our first one, this is our second one. Countries.map is not a function. How are you not a function? Countries. Why are you even breaking? You know, sometimes this is just annoying. Countries.map is not a function. Like, why are you even an error? Why? let me restart. Let's restart our server. Oh, and we have some issues here that says what? These two are not used, and this one. Okay, we're going to fix this. Let's restart our server. Okay, so even after restarting the server, we still get this error. Which is quite annoying. I think I'm going to leave it for a while so that, you know, this cools down a bit.